Normalisasi hubungan Indonesia dengan Israel kembali muncul dalam pertemuan antara Menlu Retno dengan Menlu Amerika Serikat Antony Blinken. Isu ini bukan kali pertama. Israel berkali-kali melakukan lobi dengan Indonesia. Kami mewawancarai ex-kepala Mossad untuk Asia Tenggara, sekaligus Wakil Ketua Kamar Dagang Indonesia Israel. Benarkah Indonesia tidak memiliki hubungan dengan Israel?
First of all, it's good to know that the Biden administration is following up on what the Trump administration tried to do, but we still have to see whether that will have more success.
What do you think? Is this normalization between the two states is possible to be happened?
I think normalization is possible. I think for the time being, it's not likely. I think we have to find other venues to go around it as long as we are not doing anything with the Palestinians. I think it will be difficult for the politicians in Jakarta to go to full normalization. But there are alternatives which I can talk about.
What kind of alternatives?
Well, there is the Taiwan solution. You know, as you very well know, Indonesia does not have diplomatic relations with Taiwan because of China. And but nevertheless, there is a big office of economic interest for Taiwan in Jakarta, and there are very highly developed economic relations between Indonesia and Taiwan. Okay, so what the possibility is to go the same way, to have Indonesia realize that the economic interests are very important. Go for the Taiwan solution and leave the diplomatic relations behind for a better opportunity when Israel will start doing something with the Palestinians.
Okay, let's say that relationship between Indonesia and Israel are getting better. How that will impact the conflict resolution between Israel and Palestine?
Actually, not very much right now, and the thing is that my thought is always, like Erdogan in Turkey, he has with us $6 billion of trade. When he says something, we have to listen. Okay, we don't have to do what he says, but we have to listen. So right now, the relationship between Israel and Indonesia is not very 200 million, 300 million. $500 million. There's not much at stake. Let's say tomorrow Indonesia breaks off every commercial relations, not much is going to happen to Israel, okay? If we exploit our commercial potential in both ways and we get to $6 billion, $10 billion, okay? When Indonesia says something to Israel, we have to listen, okay? If we have trade, which is there's a lot of trade, and a lot of Israeli companies are doing a lot of business in Indonesia, and then your president says, "Guys, get cracking with the Palestinians. You can't keep doing what you're doing." We listen. Okay, it's very simple. So one of our points is that to encourage Indonesia to engage with Israel more in order to effect the conflict resolution, okay, in order to have an impact.
Okay, I got your point. So the higher the commercial relationship between Indonesia and Israel, the higher position Indonesia will be in the conflict resolution between Israel and Palestine. Exactly.
Okay, so that's just the way things work, If there's a lot of common interest, you listen. Okay, if there's little common interest, nobody cares. But if there's a lot of common interest and we do a lot of things together, we also get we learn to think how you think, and you learn how to think how we think, which is good for both sides.
So this is not the new issue. The normalization lobby between Israel and Indonesia rose up since the President Suharto administration. Can you tell us more about that, about some normalization lobbies between the two states?
I've been involved with Indonesia since 2000, since the Wahid administration. And at the time, Gus Dur was, he was very much in favor, but he got into political trouble over it. I think when he gave his first speech to the NPR, he raised the possibility of having diplomatic relations, and everybody screamed. So the administration stepped back from that and started to do things quietly. And since then, really nothing much has happened on the diplomatic front. There were some attempts to do that in the first Jacobi administration. There were, I think, Retno, your foreign minister, was about to visit Ramallah and was asked to. This wasn't played out very smartly by both sides. Okay, we wanted very much. You are not ready yet, and that's some kind of dissonance which makes it difficult.
And in 2000, President Wahid met Prime Minister Shimon Peres. At that time, he was the Minister for Regional Cooperation. Can you tell us about that meeting? What were they talking about?
They talked about everything. It was, Shimon Peres, may he rest in peace. He can talk about a lot of things, and actually, it was an interesting meeting of cultures, because Gus Dur is a very moderate, very kind person, and he will not disturb anybody in the middle of speaking. So Shimon Peres gave a review of the situation and everything, and actually there was not a lot of talk about developing relations at the time, but it was understood that that's part of the effort of both sides will try to develop relations, and it did help a little in the beginning. Unfortunately, Wahid only was in his position for I think 2 years or a year and a half or something like that. It didn't, in the end, it didn't develop the way we had hoped.
Okay, from that meeting, can you tell us how bad is Shimon Peres and President Wahid likely to develop relationship between Indonesia and Israel?
I think if Gus Dur would have remained in office, things would have happened. I think things would have happened because he gave a lot of support to his administration to do that. Unfortunately, he was, Gus Dur was an opposition, a man of the opposition by nature. He was also in the opposition to his own government, so that didn't help. Okay.
What's your role in that meeting?
I was the one who arranged it, and I participated, and I used the opportunity to ask Gus Dur for a meeting with our Prime Minister at the UN conference in New York in 2000, which Gus Dur was very happy to agree to. And so that was in my position as head of station in the area. I was there.
How was Shimon Peres feeling about Indonesia at that time?
Well, first of all, he is a personal friend of Gus Dur from before. They know each other because Gus Dur visited Israel when he was Secretary General of the NU, and he joined Peres Center of Peace, and so they know each other well. And Shimon Peres was curious. He had never been to Indonesia, so he asked a lot of questions. He asked me a lot of questions because I had some exposure to Indonesia, and he also had he asked questions of the Air Force personnel at the Halim Air Base. He's a curious person.
Okay, since the fall of President Wahid, how is the diplomatic situation between Indonesia and Israel?
I think it's consistently, not much has changed. I think the Indonesian government is on one side it's interested, but it's not that interested, and on the other side it's apprehensive because it knows that the Indonesian public is not supporting right now a normalization of the relationship. So it's always walking a fine line. And I think that's one thing Indonesians are good at, to walk a fine line. So there has been very little difference between the administration of Megawati and the administration of SBE and now Jokowi. It's fairly consistent.
Okay, and why Israel want to have relationship with Indonesia?
That's first of all, for several reasons. First of all, it's a very large market, okay? And there's a good complementing between the two economies. A lot of the things that we are very good at is the things that Indonesia needs, okay? So that's one reason. There's political reasons, because Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, and there's a lot of and it's a very moderate Islam. The political Islam in Indonesia is something that we should only be so lucky if Islam in our neighborhood would be like it is in Indonesia. So there's a lot. And also it's good for Israel to be exposed to a moderate Islam and a moderate Muslim country. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons why Israel has interest, and also there's not to forget also that through Indonesia, Israel can get to other Muslim countries commercially.